up with.
Were we supposed to complete the whole thing?
No, whatever you had completed. I mean, you have to have it complete by the end of the 10 weeks.
We'll be checking.
Yeah. Were you guys find out that it was like interesting, or were you guys
Well, we did the 5 questions. They were sort of, so how well does this person collaborate with other member owners at meetings and on the job? Does he, she ask for help when needed, offer help when needed?
She wants to go through all of them or just a couple? How conscientious is this person about providing access to decision-making, training, and work opportunities for other member owners?
How reliable is this person? Does he, she attend meetings regularly, arrive at jobs on time, and fulfill his, her commitment to the job, fulfill his, her administrative, organizational responsibilities between meetings?
And more.
Okay. So with those evaluation stuff, from those evaluation stuff, you're gonna have to figure out the grievances, right? Like, if they don't do this stuff, then you're gonna have grievances. So that's why, like, I say that it would be better to have grievances first, because you wanna know what the things are problematic at the job first, and then you evaluate people on those. Because usually we evaluate people on the stuff that is actually not stuff that you can do grievances on, right? Or like, you want to do grievances on certain stuff that is going to be problematic, and not always is the stuff that you evaluate in people.
But I was kind of thinking of the things that are issues sometimes when I was doing.
Okay.
Isn't the grievance part of it though just a sort of a format or a process?
For resolving the
Right.
stuff that.
So how would that direct you towards evaluation, specific things to evaluate on? I would think that would just sort of
So
come.
because you want to evaluate people in the stuff that you think is going to be problematic. You don't want to just evaluate people in the stuff the day by day, because then you're going to spend tons of time just doing evaluation and you're not going to be working. So I think the important, and we usually have this problem with people doing it the other way around, which is like, logically sounds like, okay, we're gonna do first evaluation, we're gonna think about evaluations first and then grievances, but then you're gonna have a huge grievance procedure if your evaluation is about huge stuff. So I think it's just, the way to think about on grievances are the stuff that you cannot resolve in a just simple conversation with someone, or just like in a meeting and say, well, you know, I don't think you did this right, or with having a list of stuff, or contract, right, of how you have to behave. Grievances are stuff that are gonna lead to somebody either leave the organization or to have some note in the record that already you talked to them and they didn't listen, or something that legally can help you to, if that person becomes a problem, you have something to back you up. So grievances are not just to have a happy workplace. They're, you know, the primary thing is for that, but the most important thing legally is that grievances are going to help you if you have a labor issue in your organization. Like, you can have, I think Matt had that question about what is the difference between grievances and just having a, you know, you call a conflict resolution thing. It is a conflict resolution thing is an internal thing that you can work on internally, but it's not going to help you if you go to court for a labor issue. So those are the, you know, you can have them together or embedded in your grievances.
Do many co-ops have a point person, so to speak, where grievances initially go to?
So,
Or is that something that they
HR.
get the co-op, usually like an HR person, or more so, is there one point person that initially hears the grievance and just files it, maybe it isn't physically in a record? Or does it, for most cooperatives, is it discussed at a team group level, either electronically or at a staff meeting?
I think that's a decision of the co-op, depending on the size of the co-op. But I will like tell everyone that try to have at least 2 people instead of having just one person to have all the power of HR stuff. That at least have 2 people in that team, or have a policy that everybody has to be part of if it's a small group.
Is there an I'm looking for is there an example of a cooperative that you may know of that had some issues, that had to go through the grievance process that you mentioned led to a member evaluation review board, so to speak, and maybe at some point that member was asked to be delayed and they were removed?
I was just telling Stacy that when I was at the interpreters co-op, we actually had an issue with one member. That it was an issue from the beginning. Apparently, when I got to the co-op, they were already 3 years going on in the co-op, and they started started getting jobs and putting their stuff together at the same time. So they were working towards getting incorporated when I got in 3 years later. And it was one member that disagreed in a lot of the things, even in the mission. Our mission was, it was a woman's own co-op, and she was like, why we can't have men? And like, it was a lot of the issues about it. Like, it was a statement to have just women in the co-op. And from the beginning,
that was known. She knew that coming in.
Right.
Okay.
So, but it started, and a lot of the things in the co-op were like informal, so it started as a collective. And one of the things that we had in our decision-making processes, I was telling Stacy, is we wanted to have consensus. So we had a consensus model, and I started doing the books of the co-op and started to find out a lot of problems with this person taking money here and there during those 3 years before I was there. So I brought it to everyone, and she was like, no, you probably have, and I'm like, no, here are receipts from Price Right and for other stuff that we don't buy food for ourselves, like where is this? So it was an issue, and we couldn't kick her out. It took us 6 months to kick her out. We have to go back to all the documents that we wrote. We had to take out the consensus model and put a voting model so we can have, because of that, we could have some grievances passed because we didn't have any of that. We had just.
How do you switch from a consensus model if you can't get consensus?
Right.
Switch on the consensus model.
Well, so we had to all, because we were the board, we could agree and change that stuff. But yeah, we it was an issue because she blocked that decision. And it was like, so I think for us was a big learning curve, right? And we finally kicked her out, but at the point we kicked her out, we were 6 members, and she took half of our clients with her. Like, we had to basically buy her out. And she took half of our clients. She still works in Providence and have a huge amount of clients that used to be our clients. And we cannot even talk to those clients anymore. I cannot talk, as now that the co-op is dissolved and everything, I can't go there and talk to her clients.
Why? Because was that a formal thing?
We had to hire a lawyer, and it was put in writing for the next 10 years. None of us.
Wow.
Most non-competes are no more than 3.
It was 10 years.
Wow.
That's way too long.
It
Wow,
was,
so maybe
but
we
we
should
won her
hire
out.
more.
It was
Yeah.
like a lot of negotiation. So It's very important to have this stuff. Like, it's not joke. Like, it's one person can turn this stuff. And she knew a lot of this stuff. She was very smart.
Okay.
And, you know, she knew a lot of this stuff that was gonna work in her favor. So it's important to have, you know, money stuff is very important to have there. Like, you know, especially the people that have money, with the people are working with the money, to have like a lot of stuff about, you know, having clear decision making on money. Like, if it's more than $100, who have to agree that the $100 can be expended? We didn't have any of that. We all trusted each other, and we were all friends, and we liked each other. Actually, she was the one that brought me into the co-op, which it was the weirdest part.
What did she do that you asked me to figure out?
She was taking money out of, like, she took like $3,000 or $4,000
Whoa.
in 3 years.
For price rights?
Well, it was price right. Like, she would buy office supplies and use it for her, like, you know,
For her personal
for her personal stuff, gas for her car. Like, it was a lot. She had the debit card of the co-op, and but it was like nobody else wanted to take the books. So like, she didn't thought, you know, nobody was gonna notice. Yeah, it was bad.
So we probably need to keep moving on this, and we did it the other way around. We did grievances first, pointing towards our.
So
D
you
has the
wanna,
nose.
you wanna tell me? We still have 5 minutes.
Or D has the nose.
So, future focus, what we discussed real quickly, is almost a tier system. So we would have if there was a grievance, the first thing would be in the form of an email or talk, or bring it up in a staff meeting and bring it up there and just put it on the, basically put it on the table so that everyone's aware of it. And then we can have a conversation or just make people aware that there's this grievance. And then if, say a grievance happens, if there are 3 grievances, then it triggers a memory evaluation. So we have step 1 is talk/email. Step 2, the formal grievance process in writing, again, 2. And then step 3 would be the memory evaluation. So then that way, if there are a number of grievances, we use the number 3, that triggers automatically a memory evaluation.
I'm confused. Wouldn't you want to do evaluations first as a system? Like, wouldn't you just want to build evaluations in for everyone, just to prevent grievances from happening? So, like,
Yeah.
Do you also have regular grievances?
Well, it would be a regular grievance, exactly, but also, a
Regular
lot of times
evaluation.
I think about, memory evaluation or review in the formal sense, coming from, the business world. Those usually come up after things have happened, and it's too late.
in my experience, you usually get reviewed annually.
Well,
Yeah.
a number of times a memory evaluation is, again, two instances I've had experience, it's always been performance-based, right?
Yeah.
It's always tied to salary, tied to hourly wage or whatnot. What we're trying to do, because Future Focus is slightly different because it's a photography, videography cooperative, we're dealing with the arts. We're dealing with a lot of project-based incidents. So, for example, if we were talking about this, if I don't return the camera equipment, and we have an official sign-up policy, and I keep the camera and just don't let anyone know, and ultimately, we're missing out on jobs, because guess who has the cameras? Me, and no one knows that. Matt or whomever can file a grievance. 3 of those automatically then will trigger a memory evaluation, because guess what? If I can't know that, if I know that this is not right for me to keep the equipment out and not let someone know about it, then at some point my membership is in question.
So I think
if
we'd have
somebody never
regular.
commits a grievance, they would never get evaluated.
No, we have regular evaluations too. It would just trigger it to happen right then when the
Right,
third
right,
grievance
right.
happens.
Right.
Our question though is, if only one incident happens and it's really bad, how does it then trigger something
Right.
that could?
Can we go from 1 to 3
Yeah.
immediately?
Like who decides? How
And
does
who
that
decides
happen?
that?
I think you should have it written in, like you were saying, if it's something that is putting in danger someone, or if it's something that's putting in danger your job, like other jobs, like if you're losing clients,
Or something that's illegal.
something that is illegal, then you should just be able to jump to third or something minor.
Quick question. You said that the first grievance comes up at a meeting.
It could happen at a meeting, but it
Right.
could also be.
But is the point of that just to air the grievance, or do you try to resolve it at that meeting, or do you try to, what's the goal?
Say, yes, to bring it up, to make people aware, and then have a conversation about it, so that the wrongs can be fixed.
Okay.
So, for example, I'm continuously checking out the equipment and not signing it back in. Hey,
What's up with that?
what's up with that? It's affecting the collective, it's affecting I continuously do it, I'm making some bad decisions that affect multiple people.
We have 1 minute,
You have a question over there, sir?
yeah.
Isn't that you can have 3 different grievances on the same topic, or,
They can be separate incidents.
okay, but it's just a total of 3?
Three would trigger the memory evaluation.
Okay, and so is the evaluation like a formal thing, document that like needs, like, this evaluation that, grievances trigger? Is that like something that, because you could ask like why, you know, if they've done this thing 3 times and it just sucks, they suck, that kick them out. Like, what is the evaluation for? Like, what is the point of it?
I mean, I think too the idea of the evaluation is to figure out if it's something else that is not Dee's fault. Like he would say, well, you know, I don't have a ride all the time, so I prefer to have the camera, so when a job comes, something like that you would not know just in a grievance. Like evaluation is not just to like evaluate him.
It's a two-way
Usually
street.
it's a two-way, yeah, like people are committed to find solutions to the issues too before kicking somebody out, especially in a co-op.
Does it have a pathway to kicking somebody out? Like,
That's what we have to create. Well, I mean, we'll be creating that. I mean, that's the communication right there.
Yeah. I mean, this is an essential tool to creating a path to kicking somebody out, but it's also an essential tool for, you know, for the co-op to do good work, you know? So you define what good work looks like and you make sure that you're all, that's the thing, I think most of us in our working lives are familiar with evaluations as a punishment tool,
Yeah.
you know? But I think you need to create a culture where the evaluation is more of like a self, what do you call that? Like a progress tool that we all want to get better at stuff. That's why it's important for us to design the evaluations ourselves and ask questions like, what do I want to get better at? You know, so it really is, it's not just something that you're going to get in trouble for if you don't do well, but it's like you can see your own growth. Because, you know, you have a good working life if you feel like you're learning and growing at work. I mean, we kind of just deserve that as people.
A lot of what I'm finding right now, and I mentioned this when we were talking about marketing and branding, is one of the biggest things I challenge myself and even companies I consult to is think about what you want as the end result, and then start working backwards instead of going from one, you know, A, B, C, D like that. See, what do you want the end result to be? So we want to have, you know, we want to have a good hot sauce. We want it to be successful. We want it to have brand recognition. We want people all over the world to buy it, and more importantly, we want the group to know about it. So, okay, how do we get there? That's the end result. So, what do we need to do in terms of the steps? So it's the same thing with this memory evaluation too. It's just thinking about it from the standpoint of, okay, we don't want it to get so bad that it sucks for everyone. We want it to be successful.
Yes, so the way I have been thinking about it is, I've been thinking about evaluation as being, you know, constructive thing. So you want to know, you know, what are the criteria that are important to making this co-op or collective work, and how well are you doing? You know, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what do you need to work on? And then out of the evaluation procedure, if there's no progress, or if somebody is repeated, you know, consistently, you know, falling short of evaluation, I don't know. I think of grievance as being like more serious.
You think so?
That's how I have thought of it in the past, that grievance is, yeah, you
Well,
got
it's
it done,
like-
but
it's
now,
like-
boom.
It's like having a meeting, right? And guess what? I'm the person that's consistently late. That's a grievance. Dee, why can't you get your ass there on time? Yeah. You know what, I'm trying to manage too much or whatever. I don't want to be talking
But I
about
think
myself.
in like labor, like if you were in a union, a grievance is, I think you're right, it's like the language implies something a lot more serious.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it sounds like what you guys are talking about is more like a complaint
Accountability.
or like
Yeah.
I would,
Semantics.
yeah, it is a semantic difference, but I think it's significant.
'Cause we-
I would, yeah, I
we
would think
talked about,
about
like-
changing that word that you guys are using.
With our group, there's a difference between like giving and receiving feedback. So like having systems for having like regular systems in place where you can give constructive feedback and you can receive constructive feedback to prevent problems internally. But then the grievances we talked about was just like if Mackenzie has an issue with me, or like I don't know, the example I was like sexually harassing her. Like our grievance policy would be like, this is the staff member that you can go to resolve that problem. Or if like she felt the whole organization was harassing her, like here's the external body, and like this is the process and pathway that you would address this. And then like even beyond that, like here's the emotional laws that are protecting you and this, and making sure everyone knows about those things.
I think sexual harassment should have a separate process though. No, I don't think it should follow the same grievance procedure because there are other legal implications usually. But that, I understand your example and it's a good one. But I'm just saying if it's sexual harassment, then it's a different thing.
But I think that like that example might translate for a lot of other serious problems where like if you had serious grievance with a person, like you would want an alternative pathway than like directly, you know, there has to be an entity that you can go to instead of directly that person if it's so serious.
Right.
Yeah, because our evaluation is like all the member owners participate in an evaluation of every particular member owner. You know, it's like 353. So a grievance procedure, right, needs another place else.
So it's still like the question about grievances and, so it's good to have an internal evaluation for getting better at stuff. That's important to have. But it's also important to have a system for dealing when those evaluations are not enough or when that internal stuff doesn't happen. Could be like after mediation. If mediation didn't work, then you start the grievance procedure doing that, right? So you can do that too. But whatever way you do it, important things is what is your mission and vision, how you can achieve that mission and vision, and thinking about that mission and vision also, how you're gonna do those procedures, like especially the evaluation, how the evaluation is gonna bring you to complete your mission, like how, if you're a green co-op and you want to do everything environmental and somebody's just buying this kind of paper, this kind of place, right? Should be fired. So like for example, like if that's your mission, that should be reflected in evaluation too, right? So that kind of stuff, like if your mission is to have empower the community and you're treating your co-workers like bad, you know, and disempower them. So like that kind of stuff is important. I think this is enough. People have more questions. We can maybe talk about the last weeks or later tonight, but we can move on to.
Oh, I just thought of, I'm sorry, just trying to make sense. So as you were talking about grievance procedure, it was the grievance of an individual rather than of the organization.
Yeah, or I mean, you could have a grievance of the whole organization where you feel like everything that's coming to mind is like a legal thing, but like if you felt like it was a racist work environment and like everyone was being racist toward you, like the whole staff, and the culture of the organization was like, or sexist, of like you were always being asked to like do the dishes and like work and things like that, and then having, you know,
I see.
What's your recourse? I think of it as like, yeah, what's your recourse in times of trouble?
Right, so, but it's the individual worker that's at stake, you know? It's not like the organization is bringing a grievance against an individual. it's like the individual is bringing a grievance against another individual or against the organization as a whole.
And that, I think that's just because I'm coming from like a non-cooperative perspective where like the individual needs grievances because they're disempowered and like the organization doesn't need the grievance power because they can do what they want to do. Just hire someone, so I think I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it in the
Alright.
wrong way.
Alright.
No, it's, I think you guys are getting it.